case you missed it. All right, so listen to this news brief here, because I want you all to remember what happened just last week when the country did a turnaround. It changed, the whole reality changed here, where for the first time in so long, there was talk of possible civil war, more on the side of the left wing, basically, not the right wing, but the left wing, because a horrible tear was torn in the country when security troops came to try to bulldoze down and demolish homes in different outposts around the land of Israel and Judea and Samaria. And there was people who went, the Hilltop Youth and other Yeshus supporters came and went to try to stop the bulldozers from leaving an army base. They went in. There was a big ruckus. A soldier had a rock thrown at his head, and he was called a Nazi. And the left wing went crazy over this, saying all of a sudden using the word terrorist when it came to settlers. They were calling this the terrorist settlers, and that Bibi makes an immediate emergency meeting. How are we going to solve this problem with these anarchists? And they all of a sudden, just like a day or two later, come out with all these new rules. They're going to have military courts, and they're going to put in a lot more security officers, et cetera, instead of doing something where they can heal the country. They did the opposite. They threw more fuel in the fire, making the settlers out to be these anarchists and not good citizens, that were lawbreakers, that whatever it was that they wanted to, that were extremists, because whenever they use the word right wing, they almost always follow it with extremist. When instead, if Bibi wanted to unify the country, which actually he's good at, Bibi is not liked by everybody, but he does have the ability, and you have to give him credit here, because the right wing will go with him if they believe that he's going to be looking out for them, and they do believe that because he's in the Likud, and Likud has always been looked at as a party that has been friendly with the settler movement, because in their list of their protocols, they say that they believe in strengthening the settlement. So, of course, the right wing wants to go with him. And the left wing didn't like him, but they saw that he wasn't wearing a kippah, so they weren't so scared about that. And they saw that he was already in office, and their lives haven't changed too much on the left side. And so he was able, and he is able, to unite the country, but he chose not to do it because there may be plans to delegitimize the right wing and the settler movement, because if indeed they're going to hammer out some type of Palestinian state, well, that state is where my house is and where the Bet El studios are, where we broadcast from, and Judea and Samaria, the heartland of Israel, as well as Jerusalem and almost all of our holy places. So they've got to make this Judenrein. They have to throw the Jews out because the Arabs don't want us here. They don't want us in their state. They want their state an apartheid state. So apartheid that we're not even in there. But look at this new news article that came out. There's a report now that a deal has been worked out on Ramat Gilad. Now, let's remember Ramat Gilad. This was one of the outposts, and this is where and why a lot of the troubles took place last week. It says here, a report Monday night said that a deal had been worked out to legalize Ramat Gilad. Look at that. And prevent any future attempts at demolition. Look at that. Gee, if they would have done this already last week, none of this would have ever happened. Let me continue here. The report on Channel 2 said that 5 buildings would be moved several dozen meters off land that Arabs dispute. See, it doesn't say that Arabs own or that there's a deed that shows that it's owned by someone else. It's a dispute. Let me continue. In return, the state will authorize the areas as part of the city plan of Karnei Sharon, essentially turning the area into a neighborhood of the town. The plan was worked out between Minister Benny Begin and Yesha Council head Danny Dayan. A report in Makor Rishon on Friday said that Begin had worked out the deal last week, but that Defense Minister Ehud Barak He's a lefty from the Labor Party. Well, he's not really from Labor anymore. But Ehud Barak had decided to reject it and to demolish the site. So here we have a defense minister who would rather pick a fight, divide the country, and throw innocent Jewish families out of their beds in the middle of the night and bulldoze down their home and make Jews homeless. This is what he chose. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the head of the Likud party, the prime minister of Israel, chooses this left-wing settler hater person, in my opinion, to be his defense minister. This man, Ehud Barak, was the defense minister for the last government, which was a left-wing government run by Kadima. Why, if Netanyahu won only because of the right-wing votes, does he then go and not build a majority with the whole right wing and put in a more right-wing agenda, but he goes and takes a left-wing defense minister? See, something's wrong there. Let's go to some more stories here at IsraelNationalNews.com. The Eshkol region in Israel, it's in the southern region, there was an infiltration and it caused a security lockdown today. Residents of the Eshkol district in southern Israel are ordered inside following an infiltration of terrorists from Gaza. The story just came out about half an hour ago. Residents of the Eshkol region council district were ordered by the Israel Defense Force commanders to enter their homes and stay there tonight. Not to leave their homes tonight. The order came following a cross-border infiltration by Palestinian Authority Arab terrorists from Gaza. IDF soldiers spread out around the south to search for these terrorists. The Gaza division of the IDF decided earlier in the day to raise the level of protection for communities along the Egyptian border following an increase in the terror alerts in the area. By the way, the Egyptian border, the Gazan border, right next to each other and both bordering Israel. Here's another news story for today. Arabs throw stones at a bus in the Shomron. Arabs threw stones Monday afternoon, today in the afternoon, at an Israeli bus traveling between Chavat Gilad and the Jit Junction in central Samaria. No one was injured, thank God, but there was damage to the vehicle. IDF troops were searching for the culprits. You know, when you throw rocks, you can make a driver lose control of his vehicle. You can hit him in the head and kill him right there, or you can lose control of his vehicle and kill himself and everybody in the car and people outside of the car. It's a very, very terrible, dangerous thing to throw stones at innocent drivers. Here's another one. Happened today. Arab stone throwers rattle a bride on way to her wedding. Arabs on Monday evening stoned a car traveling in the Shimon HaTzadik neighborhood. Inside the vehicle was a bride on her way to her own wedding. There were no injuries reported, thank God, but the car was damaged. Police were searching for the culprits. So here's a girl. It's a day she's been waiting for her whole life. Everything's going to be perfect. The perfect dress. She got her hair done, the makeup, everything's great. All of her friends are invited. She's been waiting. She's so excited. She's going to start a new life. And then, bam! Stones thrown at her vehicle. Glass shattering. Maybe it was shattered all over her dress and hair, but that's not considered being injured. The trauma of it. I mean, a bride is nervous enough, but the trauma of it. Let me read you this story here. This came out too just recently on IsraelNationalNews.com. Germany, Berlin, says that Israeli construction, of course in the settlements, is devastating to peace. Can you believe this title? The German officials claim building Jewish houses sends a devastating message for peace efforts. Tell me, my friends, I just read you a whole bunch of articles here. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy news. I just read you an article articles in the news about rocks being thrown on innocent drivers trying to kill them. This is done by Arab terrorists. We're being infiltrated in the south of the country by terrorists, so everybody in the Eshkol region are now, as I'm talking, locked in their homes for fear because of this terrorist infiltration into our country. Oh, but that's not endangering the peace process. No. Our southern region is constantly under missile bombardment, Grad missiles, Qassam rockets, Katyushas. But that's not hindering the peace process. Oh no, it's building Jewish homes. It's crazy. And what about this one? Hamas and other Arab groups in the PA are putting their own people to death for collaboration charges with Israel with no trial. They just drag them out of their houses. They murder them. Then they mutilate the body. And then they drag this mutilated body through the streets in public so little kids walking home from school can see this all going on and see the bloodstains on the road. And then they take that body after they've mutilated it and dragged it through the streets and they hang it on public electric poles. Why? Because they were just suspected of being friendly to Israel or collaborating somehow. Suspected. No proof. No trial. But, of course, that's not hindering the peace process. I mean, doesn't that sound like a people who want to make peace, who are saying, you know what, we'll just forget the past and look for a better future. Let's make peace together. No. That the European community doesn't talk about. And one more thing. Just yesterday, Israel, to my dismay, and to many people's dismay, honored the Shalit deal and let out another 550 terrorists. 550 terrorists are now walking the earth outside of prison. And what happened when these terrorists were freed? In this gesture for peace and conciliation, and we're making deals and let's honor them, blah, blah, blah. What were they yelling? They were yelling, kidnap more soldiers! Kidnap more soldiers! Keep kidnapping soldiers until we free all of our prisoners! Isn't that against the law? I mean, isn't that kind of like, number one, of course, it's incitement. Number two, it's premeditated, calling out for people to do crimes. And this, as they're getting off the buses, these 550 murderers and murderer supporters and other terrorists. Oh, but that doesn't worry Berlin. That doesn't worry the European Union. That doesn't worry the West. That doesn't worry the world. Nobody talks about that they're talking about kidnapping more Israeli soldiers. What a mixed up world. What a nutty world we live in. That's why I say, I'm sorry, but that's why I say I don't care what the world thinks. I don't care if the Arabs and the Palestinian Authority recognize Israel. I really don't. People put so much importance. Oh, they have to recognize us. They have to recognize Israel. I don't care if they recognize us. Did Japan not recognize the United States of America? Of course they did. But they still went to war against them. Did not Germany recognize England and France? Of course they did. But they still went to war against them. So what does it help us that this entity, this nest of filled with terrorists, should deign us with their, okay, we will recognize you? They can still go to war against us. And they are at war against us. And they are the ones who opened this war against us, because since our inception, Israel has had its hand out for peace. You know, I hear people saying, Israel just has to learn how to live in peace with the Arabs. You know, like, get with it, you guys. Learn how to live in peace with them. And I say, we do live in peace with Arabs. We do. There are Israeli Arabs in Israel. They live very well here. They serve on our Supreme Court. They are Knesset members. They're doctors. They're my physical therapists when I have a bad back. They live very well here. And Israel has peace. I want you to repeat this to your friends. when they talk to you about this. Israel has peace with every single Arab that wants peace. With every single Arab that wants peace. The only Arabs that Israel doesn't have peace with are Arabs who don't want peace with Israel. And you cannot make peace with people who don't want it. We have nothing to apologize about. We don't have to look to the world to stand by us, to help us, because our salvation is not going to come from the world. And though we have many American friends, it is not going to come from America. And though we have many Christian friends, it's not going to come from the support of the Christian community. Yes, it's welcome. Yes, they will be blessed for blessing the Jews, as it says in the Bible. Those who bless the Jews will be blessed. Those who curse the Jews will be cursed. But that's not where our salvation is going to come from. Our salvation only comes from the one up in heaven. That's the only one that we have to impress. That's the one that we have to lift our eyes to and look to and ask for salvation and for his help. We have to have faith in God up in heaven, because the world fails us continuously. It failed us throughout the ages. It failed us in the Holocaust. We were begging the Allies, bomb the railroad tracks, because the railroads were bringing thousands upon thousands of Jews every day to Auschwitz and to the other camps to be murdered and sent up the chimney. But the world failed us because the Jews were not that important to them. And when it comes to a country deciding what's more important to them, their oil or their Jews, even though they may not have anything against Jews, they're going to choose their oil. They're going to choose whatever is more important to them. They don't even have to hate us. But we cannot look to the world for justice, because they're not going to give it to us. And we cannot expect places like Germany, who's supposed to be such a cultured European country, and they have the chutzpah, they have the nerve to tell us that Jews building homes in the land of Israel is devastating to peace? I almost lost my supper just now. This is who we have to rely on. You know, one of the reasons why we wanted a state of Israel was so we could have our own army and fight our own battles that we need to fight, and never again to rely on anybody else for our protection. All right, so I think I fell from the line for a moment. I'm sorry about that. But we have our own state of Israel today, so we can be the masters of our own destiny when it comes to security. And, of course, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, God in heaven. We do not have to rely on the world, and we should not rely on the world. Israel is a strong country. We don't need people to recognize us. If they do, great. If they don't, they don't. We know, again, let me remind us all, those who bless the Jews will be blessed, and those who curse the Jews will be cursed. It says so in the Bible. And I hope I'm being heard. I just want to maybe get a note from my technician that everything's coming through all right, because I am broadcasting remotely. So we need to rely on ourselves and not look to the world to help us. Because if our friends like here in Germany that are saying that construction of Jewish houses sends a devastating message for peace, while we are being bombed in the south by Grad missiles, while we are being infiltrated by terrorists coming into Israel, right now as I speak, people are locked in their homes in the southern part of Israel because of an Arab infiltration. When we honor a deal with terrorists, release 550 terrorists, and they're screaming not thank you or welcome home, they're screaming kidnap more soldiers! Kidnap more and more soldiers! That's not devastating to peace? Where is the world? They're not on our side. Like the Maccabee call, who is for God? A lie. After me, with me, come. the Hanukkah season. We have to stand up for God. We'll be right back with a special interview.